Given what we know about all the hands in the cookie jar, how pervasive is the problem of illegal immigration here in Maine, and which entity is the biggest enabler?
Well, if you look at Lewiston, not that long ago, I think Fatuma Hussein in her one of her videos there said that she came here in 2001 and there were 3 families all together from Somalia in Lewiston. It's grown from that small start about less than 20 years ago to the city of Lewiston has the highest per capita percentage of Somalis in the country. I believe it's 11% of the Lewiston population is Somali. That's the highest percentage of any city in the United States. So that is has become a go-to destination, and I think that the Immigrant Resource Center that Fatuma Hussein runs clearly gets money and is benefiting her specifically, but she's also very effective at making sure that the Somali community, wherever the immigrants come in, knows that that is the place to go to.
Thank you. I always say and talk about my 6 children, and people say, "You look young." I'm like, "Thank you." I am from Somalia. I am a Somali who got resettled in the United States back in 1993. I came to Maine in 2001, to be precise, February 4th, 2001. When I came to Lewiston, we had 3 families who were from Somalia. Maine has changed, and so has Lewiston, 11 years ago. When we came to Maine, we were looking for prosperity, change, safety, and good life for our children. Many refugees come in on what's called free cases. They have no idea and no control over where they get resettled. Refugees come in with their immigration status, so we're not illegal immigrants. We're people who are coming in with their refugee status. So when I get resettled in anywhere in the United States, I have the option to then move to any state that I want to move to. Refugees are legal immigrants, and so when we moved to Maine 11 years ago, and when we moved to Lewiston Urban 11 years ago, we were moving, searching for safety, smaller communities, places where we can thrive, and better future for our children. Today, Maine has different colors, different cultural backgrounds, different religious backgrounds. When we have leaders and people who are in positions who tell us and send the wrong messages, we really don't appreciate that. You know? Today, we cannot afford to divide ourselves. We are one large community that has many different colors. And so when we are refugees and immigrants, we're people who are here to build Lewiston Urban, to build Maine, to contribute to the economy of this state. We are people who work so hard. We are people who pay taxes, and I'm going to emphasize on that. We're people who pay taxes, and we're people who build Lewiston's economy. When I came to Lewiston, Lisbon Street was not thriving. You go down Lisbon Street today, it has many colors. It's thriving. It's a community that has a comeback. And better yet, refugees don't move out of the state. You know, refugees stay together. We don't send our children out of the state. When my daughter is 18, I'm hoping she goes to Bates College. So, it is important for all of us to realize that the reality is Maine has changed, and so is Lewiston, Auburn. We are human beings. We have a right to be here. If I had a choice today, I would be in Somalia. Can you imagine you being displaced? And for a second, put yourself in my shoes.
I believe that a lot of Somalis are refugees, maybe not asylum seekers. It seems like the people coming across the Rio Grande River are more of the illegal alien type. The refugees are vetted before they come here and allowed in. And some of them come in on some sort of a lottery, which to me is like Russian roulette. They're not really vetted. They just put their name in a hat, I guess, and pick out some, which doesn't seem very safe to me. So the distinction between the refugee and the asylum seeker and the asylee is that the refugees programs are taken care of by the federal government. So those services are provided for by the feds, and the asylum seekers and asylees and the illegal aliens need to be paid for locally by the state. So it's pretty pervasive here in the cities, Portland, Lewiston especially. I think Bangor is probably getting some now. Well, now they've actually branched out with this, the newest wave of or influx was distributed in a number of places, Scarborough being one, Brunswick. Wasn't there, Larry, a bunch that went up to the county or down east somewhere, some facility there? So it's almost like they're on purpose peppering the state with these smaller pods to infiltrate instead of to have them all in one location. They're spreading them all over. And the biggest culprit I see with this is Catholic Charities providing the bus tickets and the avenues and then the services to get them specifically in the state of Maine. And then, of course, you have like as I said, the Immigrant Resource Center. They get money once they're here. But the group that seems to be most active, as far as I can determine, at getting them to the state of Maine from wherever they're coming in from is Catholic Charities. The remedy to me is that we need to get people really worked up and vocal and helping them know what phone numbers to call, what email addresses to target, social media, just helping them find their voice, write letters to the editor, that kind of thing, push back.
Yeah, Catholic Charities of Maine is almost totally government funded. It's well over 90% of their funding comes from the feds. Last I remember, their annual budget, just Catholic Charities of Maine, $29 million a year. Their top brass are all making six figures. Speaking of the impact on Lewiston, I believe the figure is English as a second language instruction. The spending on that's gone up by a factor of 10 times. We're spending 10 times as much on that as we were 12 or 15 years ago. It's in the neighborhood of $20 million a year. Most of that concentrated in Lewiston. The James B. Longley Elementary School in Lewiston, I think, has the highest percentage of non-English speakers. But in school achievement, they are ranked 295 out of 295 elementary schools in Maine. It's all, and the same thing with their middle school. I believe one of the schools in Biddeford's got the same problem. So the idea that that this has been a big boon and that they've revitalized the city of Lewiston, by what measure?
Right.
From the month prior.
What's that?
From the month prior.
Yeah.
That's their measure.
But no, and Heather's right. You just have to keep making a fuss about this and encouraging other people to whatever outlet they have in their own circle of influence, they need to be confronting this and pushing back, whether it's contacting legislators or on social media, because again, the fake news media is not going to help. They literally are the enemy. They're falsely portraying what's going on. They're just blatantly dishonest about the whole situation, and they're glad to smear anybody who questions any of this.
Zach, you got anything to add?
No, I honestly don't. I mean, I'd just be parroting what both of them have said. I mean,
Yeah, and I just have I mean, everything is totally valid points. My take is, as a member of the electorate, as a father, as a contributor to the tax base in the state, it's and when we look at the organizational chart of our government, the electorate, the citizen is on top. So if our state is in shambles financially, and we have wide open, and I say shambles, certainly we don't have a lot of savings, and so we've got doors wide open for anybody to come here, and we just know in this particular case that we're taking care of roughly 300 people that are here illegally, people that from the Chief Border Patrol, Jason Owens, he said that they flew over here. When they got to the border, they were apprehended. They had, most of them, you know, the average amount of cash in their on their person was about $600, and we paid for their bus trip up here, and we are paying for their welfare while they're here. And I can't remember the figure, but I think he said 90%, and it's going to be part of this podcast anyway, so if I'm incorrect, whoever listens can just listen to what was said, but 90% of them will not show up for their court proceedings for their asylee status. So if and when, if they're ever apprehended, they're going to be deported. So how many years do they stay here on our backs and on our kids' backs? So
And we all know they are not going to be deported after they either fail to show up for their asylum hearing or they are denied asylum, and they're not going to self-deport.
Right.
I mean, I challenged Randy Billings at the Portland Press Herald on this. I said, does anybody seriously believe, you know, because he doesn't dispute the 90% figure, somewhere between 60 and 90%, their asylum application is going to be denied. They're just bogus applications, at which point they become deportable. And there is not going to, the Portland Press Herald will not be calling for a roundup of these people. It's just not going to happen. The other thing, too, the point about the Congolese, they've been so poorly vetted. I mean, not vetted at all. Yes, there's a bitter, deadly conflict going on in the Congo. We don't know which side these people were on. Are these the perpetrators who managed to get out with their cash and the clothes on their back? Were they part of the ruling class? Who knows? We don't know that these people are victims of some kind of violence in their home country. They might have been the perpetrators. But reporters aren't going to ask those questions.
Well, we certainly know, and this is a topic for the next podcast, we know that there are terrorists among them. We know that from the FBI. We know that, you know, from history. just within the last couple of years, those that have been apprehended. But my point to top this second segment off is I contend that the citizens really at this point should have pitchforks and the torches when we have a government that's essentially enabling this chaos just to remain in power. That's tyranny and it's at a cost of just more than us. It's undermining the future of our children. So if you're going to label me a racist and a bigot and a xenophobe, I'll take that any day when it comes to fighting for the liberty of the future of posterity. That's a fight I'll have.
Yeah.
One thing I don't think we covered really well was the Republicans and that side of the aisle wanting to or being quiet about this issue. Larry, help me out if I'm crossing the line here, but we had a little sidebar conversation today with a candidate running for office. And the question was asked, one, how do you feel about granting amnesty to the Dreamers? And then two, how do you feel about Shelley Pingree's proposal to shorten the 180-day, 6-month wait to work requirement down to 30 days? And his response was he talked to a friend of his who said, we need the labor. And this friend of his happens to employ people that are from another country for his business for part of the year. So that cheap labor is definitely a factor for Republicans and seems to factor in heavily with their silent support.
And in fairness, maybe not cheap labor, but just any labor at all, even if people pay a premium for it. Because, and again, this goes back to the welfare system here in Maine, but yeah, you're right, there's a lot of Republican business owners who they don't have a big problem with, especially the DACA question, because, well, after all, they were brought here as minor children. It wasn't their decision to violate the law.
Right.
The problem with that, of course, is that if you do legalize them, if you give them a path to citizenship, if you grant them amnesty, you're sending a message to everybody on the south side of the border. If you can smuggle your minor child across the border and get in here, at some point you're going to be home free. And you're just setting up the next wave of illegal immigration. But it's all done in the name of compassion, and nobody wants to punish the children.
And meanwhile, they just we just passed the minimum wage increase and all that stuff. So they tell our kids, or the narrative they sell to us is that we all need a livable wage. So if we're going to invite the immigrants in, or the illegals in because it's cheap labor for the whatever industry, it's basic economics, supply and demand. You water down the market, so we're all down to my son who's a landscaper, he's competing with so all the price or carpenters or mechanics, whatever the employment is, the market is being watered down. And so it's a double, triple whammy for all of us.
For those easily triggered, the reference to pitchforks and torches is metaphorical language employed rhetorically to beg the question, where is the collective outrage? It most certainly is not intended to advocate for abuse or the raising of property, like this moonbat clearly has.
People of color are already targets under this administration.
Right.
I have no problem with shining the light back on the donors who fund this kind of racialized hate. I go further. I want pitchforks and torches outside this man's house in the Hamptons. I've been to the Hamptons. It's very nice. There's no reason why it has to be. There's no reason why he should have have a nice little party, right? No, I want there's no reason why people shouldn't be able to be outside of his house and making their voices peacefully understood that they reject his stuff.